Hi, marketers. This is Dots, and welcome to the Marketing Leadership Podcast. In what is a very exclusive episode, today I am joined by the man himself, Garren Parkins, founder and CEO at Deskrig. Without Garren and his team, this podcast would be dead before he even was born. So it's a pleasure having him on this show. And today we'll be talking about the B2B video marketing hack for profitable brands. Basically, showing how Garren and his team can help you drive your B2B video marketing to profitable levels, just like they did for Dots Loves Marketing. This is a special one, like I said, so strapping. Garren, welcome. How are you doing?
I'm awesome, Dots. Thanks so much for having me. It's a long time coming.
Yes, I know. It's a long time coming. So yeah, again, really excited to do this. We recorded so many episodes. I'm like, geez, I haven't spoken to Garren yet. Oh my God, So, um, for those who don't know you, do you want to tell us a bit about yourself, your background, and the great strides that you've made? You're really doing so well with the niche that you've carved for yourself.
Yeah, no, happy to introduce myself. It's kind of funny introducing myself to you, right?
Exactly. Right.
We have such a great relationship. So I'm like, wait, I have to kind of like remove myself from our relationship and do this all over. But my name's Garren Parkins, founder at Deskrig. We started this company back right when COVID got started because we saw that there were video efficiency tools that were available that most folks weren't taking advantage of. And as you already know, video marketing, content creation is an opportunity that B2B companies should be taking advantage of. There's been no time like this in history where companies and individuals, coaches, consultants can reach broad audiences the way that organic video marketing has enabled. Used to, you had to pay for a commercial spot or a placement in a newspaper or PPC ads. But now, if you make good video, you can get in front of millions of people by just creating content and capturing what you already do. And so, my background was in sales. I have a degree in video production, but I found that sales was where the money was at. And so I kind of followed the money for a while and worked in software sales. And I found myself in a lot of video calls where I would be making introductions and trying to get past a gatekeeper. But I found myself at a credibility deficit because my quality of my video was like most people. I'm in my home office, normal home office, with a normal background. And so, I met our producer, Brian, and I said, hey, Brian, which we've known each other for a long time, but I met with him and I said, hey, I see that you're doing some cool things with video production in the streaming world. Could we translate those things into a video call? Could we improve the quality of my video calls? And that ultimately led us into doing not just one-on-one video calls, but productions just like this one, webinars, podcasts, virtual events, and the rest is history.
Yeah, very nice history as well. And I think you're still on the right path because, we've had folks like Alex Sheridan on the pod, and he's got a sales background too. He has a love for video production. And even up until this recording, he keeps posting every day why it's important to have a great B2B video, marketing experience. So it's really nice to even, get that as well. The other joke that came to mind for me was that you followed the money and God was like, hey man, your purpose is in video, come back.
Yes.
It's kind of like a spider web drawing you back to where you're meant to be, basically. But yeah, it's you really, and before I get into the questions, like where do you see this going, like the entire industry using video for sales enablement, using video for demand generation, and having it at the best quality possible, the best experience possible. I like to use the word experience. Where do you see that? In your private moments, maybe in the bathroom or something, thinking about.
Well, first off, I'm a huge fan of Alex. I think that his story, his founder story, is so cool. And going from that apartment that he used to live in, with his daughters, and coming so far. I love success stories like that. And
Mm.
obviously, as a video professional, I love the fact that he used video as the vehicle to get him from where he was to where he's at now.
Of course, yeah.
And growing his brand through the power of video. As far as where I see video going in the future, there's a few different angles there, but I think
Okay.
the one I'd like to focus on is the future for sales folks is in video, right? Lead generation. There, right now, we both know that the amount of creators versus the amount of consumers when it comes to content is still very unbalanced. I don't
Mhm.
think that the market's too saturated. And it's not going to be for a while, because there's still a lot of barriers to entry
Yeah.
mentally for sales folks to bridge that gap between, hey, I see that the most successful people in my vertical are using video. How do I
Yeah.
do that?
Yeah.
Right. But
Yeah.
I think the future for lead generation for an individual salesperson is creating a personal brand. And I think that we'll continue to see the most successful sales folks leveraging the power of video moving forward, and there to be more and more opportunities from podcasts, webinars, personal content, and
Mm.
the quality will ultimately become the delta
Mm.
once the market becomes more and more saturated. Right now, it's good enough just to grab the cell phone and start walking down the street and be
Yeah.
bouncing around. And
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
good enough right now. But
Yeah.
I think once the market of salespeople in vertical markets becomes more and more saturated, then the
Yeah.
delta becomes quality. How do I improve the quality of my content? How do I improve the quality of my video production? And
Yeah.
so that's really the future for me. I believe for
Yeah.
video and video marketing
Yeah.
is you're going to see not just kind of the executives and the successful people
Yeah.
who can afford video production
Yeah.
using video.
Yeah.
You're going to see that next level of employee down the ladder
Mm.
being I won't say forced into video necessarily, but it will in a way start to become the expectation that if you're going to join our team, right, and you're going to be a high level, a commission earner, we already know that the difference between the best and the worst is content.
Mm. And the company doesn't have to say that. The market sometimes have to say that. And if I were in your shoes, if you're on the pod right now, I would advise you to start right now, which is exactly what I did. Yes, it's a bit of an investment, but um, for me to be able to reach some level of there's anything called positive notoriety in the marketing space in 12 months, started with this. Started with creating video world class from the beginning. Now I don't have the funds or the time to travel everywhere, to make these videos, and I'm doing it remote style, but still probably, if I would dare claim, one of the best quality ever, for virtual streaming. Now, still a bit obsessed with some parts of the industry. Another person that folks follow is Ross Simmons, right? Ross Simmons is the king of content repurposing. And from just personal experiences, you guys are also the king of video repurposing. So tell me a little bit about that. Tell me about how using these B2B videos, producing it in a way that you've been very efficient at it, and also some of the benefits of how people can even take that further to distribute through different kinds and formats of content. So I'm interested in that, and I think our folks are too.
Yeah. So when I started my own personal content creation journey, I was doing kind of these monologue style videos, and I found that that's not really easy to keep up with long term. You have to
Mm,
write the script, you have
yeah,
to record the video. That
yeah,
there's a lot that goes into it, and so I think interview style, podcast style conversations are a lot more natural for people,
mm,
and it's much more like your one-on-one video conversations that you're already having. And so as
mm,
opposed to having to spend a lot of time
mm,
writing a script, you
mm,
hop on a video call with somebody who you enjoy having conversations with. And I think why that's important is when you think about the back end of repurposing,
yeah,
you want to have a longer recording right? With a
Mm.
lot of different types of dialogue and
Mm.
opportunities
Mm.
for repurposing to come out of that. Not that monologue video that you can't really repurpose. It's just, it is what it is. It is an individual
That
piece
makes sense. I like that thought process. Yeah, go on.
that stands alone, right? And so, kind of on the back end, the way we look at it is we're like, okay, hey, we know that one of the biggest barriers to entry for content creators is the post production process
Yeah.
after you've created, right? Because you've got to take that video, and if you don't know how to video edit, you have to send that to an editor. So we kind of flipped that on its head, and we said, hey, why don't we do the editing
Mhm.
while we're recording? Right. So you already know this. Most audience probably don't understand this, but the video that we're in right now is being recorded like this. This title was in the recording. It wasn't added in post. These video boxes in this composition was
Yeah.
recorded this way, which eliminates the need for post-production. And that's just one part of the repurposing process that you get to remove from the pipeline, the content
Mm.
pipeline.
Mm.
So
Mm.
from there, from a repurposing perspective, we're also, as you know, we're recording a vertical version of this because we
Yeah.
know there's two primary formats. Vertical
Yeah.
video really is king right now. And
Yeah.
so we want to increase the efficiency of both of those formats by making sure that the recording comes out good. Now, as soon as you get done with the recording, you have so much juice to squeeze out of that lemon. Right. That's one of my favorite sayings in repurposing. And so, you've got this whole video, which is the pinnacle of the content, but then you have the transcript, right? You take that transcript, you can, now that we have AI, you can run that transcript through the Chat GPT or insert your favorite AI tool and ask it for a blog post, right?
Yeah.
To summarize the points and the takeaways. And you can really, then you've got some SEO content that you can post on your website in a standalone blog.
Yeah.
Once
Yeah.
you take the videos and you start chopping those down into these these quick shorts, these 60-second shorts, and the sound bites, we think about a content pipeline and a funnel
Yeah.
similarly to the way a salesperson thinks about a sales funnel. And so
Mhm.
we say, okay, we know that a listener is going to be willing to invest in 60 seconds, right? All that's to say, we take the 60-second, we know an audience member is going to be, their attention span's very short. And so we grab that sound bite that we're throwing all of these hooks, these content hooks in the water. And the idea is that, hey, you may find us on YouTube Shorts or Instagram Reels or Facebook Reels or TikTok, but that short may lead you to our LinkedIn profile where we're going to have longer versions where the video format length is a little bit longer, and
Yeah.
you
Or
still see a
YouTube.
lot of and YouTube. So we're going to go from this 60-second short to a 3-minute clip, kind of is what we talk about. 60-second short, 3-minute clip. And then you've got two long formats, audio only for the people who are driving and commuting, and then the YouTube version for people who are willing to really invest, sit down and watch a YouTube video on their smart TV or on their desktop in a second screen format. And ultimately it's, know from a sales perspective, it's know you, like you, trust you, right? And so you get to know somebody from a 60-second short. You might dig in a little bit longer in a 3-minute clip, and you're like, I like this person. I'm going to trust them with 60 minutes of my time and invest in that content because it's really valuable. And then all of a sudden, you've gained an audience member, and you do that over and over and over, and rinse and repeat that out of the same format once a week, recording a 1-hour long podcast interview, and you've got your entire social media strategy kind of knocked out in one hour portion.
And also it could be a webinar, or I forgot the term. Someone was also speaking about some other types of virtual engagements that you can have to build that community. But two things I picked here. The first thing is, and I think is the most important thing, when you're building content, video content, you need to plan it with repurposing in mind. As you know, we make briefs for podcasts, episodes, and it's a bit of an extra work. Sometimes it affects the schedule in itself. But the truth is that if you're able to nail that process of prepping for the content, with repurposing in mind, it makes life easier down the road. Second thing that you said that I like is have videos made based on attention level and build them up that way. So you have the shorter ones for those on the go, you have the 3 minutes ones for those who are kind of like in waiting mode, maybe at the airport, and you have the longer form folks for those in vacation. So long form content might be doing very well. And it's also very important to plan this process, this engagement process accordingly as well, and know which platforms are best for those kinds of engagement in terms of distribution. Now, the third thing, which kind of like a bonus point, is the repurposing. What we are recording right now is going to be translated into, based on what we counted, maybe 20 pieces of content, because now I've got someone who manages that. And it's kind of, there's so many, tentacles, as it were. But what this has done is that I have a stream of content up to maybe 2026. I'm almost, if you are an audience of mine, you follow me, you almost feel like I'm over communicating with you, but I'm not. It's because of the power of setups like this, where B2B videos or just videos, branded video production in general, has been so well crafted and efficiently made that you can then do that at scale. So, the benefits of that cannot be overemphasized. Now, one other question that I think bothers me sometimes is, throughout these video experiences, right, and in trying to push the boundaries, what are some of the things that you think needs to change in the current approach of B2B marketers that you see these days? I'm sure you've seen a bunch of videos, you see videos every day, and you're like, that's crap. Quality aside, and feel free to rant a bit on quality if you need to. But quality aside, what are some of the ways that you think marketers can do better when they're approaching B2B videos? What are some of the, I guess, code fit scenarios that you think B2B marketers should easily be able to overcome, given your own experience? So feel free to unleash here.
I think the first and foremost, and I hate to go back to Alex here. I don't hate
Mhm.
to, but I
No,
keep
no, no.
going back to Alex, right?
It's dope. That's the truth. So if you're the
He
B2B
made a
game,
video a couple days ago that spoke on purpose, right? Like what is the purpose of this video? Yes, it's a great first step if you're new in the game. Just publish something, right?
yeah,
Yes, it just publish, but when you start getting the handle on just publishing, right? You've got a schedule.
mhm,
Start thinking about the why. Why would somebody watch this? Would
mhm,
I watch this?
mhm,
Right? What value, what specific value, what one thing am I teaching my audience through this piece of content? And
mhm,
that will increase the likelihood someone else is going to find value in that. And it's going to increase the likelihood they're going to subscribe to you, because they know if they're investing
mhm,
that 60 seconds or that 3 minutes, there's going to be one thing,
mhm,
right? And I think, to that same point, being more obvious as a communicator about what that one thing is, rather than having your audience have to guess. So
mhm.
maybe at the this could come in a bunch of different forms. Either this could come in as the text in the video post of like, here's what you're going to learn in this video. But you could
Yeah,
also start the video out being like, hey, do you have a problem with X, Y, and Z? Are you struggling with A, B, and C?
yeah,
That hook to communicate early, clearly, and articulately about what the value is
mhm.
prior to them making that investment. Don't make them have to watch the full video to get the value,
Because
right?
they won't anyway.
Exactly. If it's ambiguous,
Yeah,
they're not going to invest their time. And if you continue to be ambiguous about the value we provided, and that was something that, I struggled with at first, was like, I think that I spent a lot of time focusing on, what is the accumulation of this content piece that I'm producing, and not being, and I was a little more ambiguous about what the value was, and rather, coming out and being like, no, if you're willing to spend the next 30 seconds with me, I'm going to tell you how to do this. I'm gonna give you a tip on this, and then they're like, okay, hey, cool, I'll stick around for this, right? I think that's really important. And then, quality. That's the other thing I'm going to say, right? So the first thing is, if you're getting into video content production, or you've been in it and you're looking to improve, be a better communicator about the value you're going to provide in that video. The second thing is quality, right? Yes, again, it's great. Pull the video camera out, just publish something. However, when you're shopping at the grocery store, right? And you've got a wall of brands to select from, right? There is such value in standing out as the obvious high quality choice, even though the same thing is in all the, let's use cans, a canned fruit, right? The same thing is in all those cans. Every can has sliced pineapple or green beans or whatever. But the branding on the front end is ultimately what makes somebody reach for you versus your competitor. And so when somebody's scrolling in their feed and they see some, mediocre quality, blurry, shaky videos, and then they see the next video and it's polished, right? It's clean, right? There are graphics and branding around it, and those graphics and branding and the quality speaks to the type of person that you are. You're going to be more likely to grab that product or to watch that product. And so I think quality, while you'll hear video coaches say, so many video coaches will say, don't worry about the quality. I'm not saying
all you need is a phone.
Yeah, right. I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm saying that you cannot deny that there will be ultimately a differentiation between good quality and bad quality video in your metrics and results.
You said that at the beginning as well, because at the end of the day, we reach saturation, and it's those brands that stick out. And I think the good thing with you, and trust me, guys, who have the largest kind of plugs on this episode, is you can still achieve quality without breaking your whatever, whether it's your back, your wallet, or whatever you're worried of breaking. So that's a good thing about that, because there's a lot of tech. You've explained some of how that works, but I don't want to leave the thoughts on the first point, which is what Mr. Beast, I think, does. For the first 30 seconds, it tells you exactly what the video is going to be about. It gives you a summary about it. Almost every video creator is now, I'm not saying he pioneered it, but he popularized it. And most video creators are doing that right now, especially those who have to do docu style videos that I love so much. And those guys, they'll publish one video on YouTube a month, and they grow, exponentially in terms of likes and followers, because people love documentaries. So I think that's very, very, very important. I think it's even important in general. I read a book called The Articulate Executive. It tells you how to present and things like that. And it says always start with the summary or the goal in mind, and then you can explain the why, instead of going the other way around. Even though some people would misuse that, but in an executive sense, it's the right way to go when layering that content. I kind of overemphasize the value of quality if you look at my story, I was speaking to my tax guys, like my accountant, and I'm like, I've invested so much in thought leadership in the last 12 months. Very significant. But some might say, well, what are you gaining from that? I've gained immediate acceptance as a marketer that knows marketing strategies. And may I make this tantalizing, as an African Black marketer who knows strategy, I've gained so much acceptance within my colleagues in the space. I've gained so much respect, even when I'm trying to get jobs or projects or whatever it is. That has helped in a way. And I'm really glad that I had to use the strategy of quality in my video communication for branding and thought leadership to accelerate my influence. I think quality sometimes is a way of accelerating influence. Um, and it's better if you do one video right than do 5 videos wrong, especially in B2B. And
Yes.
B2B now, they are starting to wake up to, you need to write the right copy, you need to do this, there's no copy and paste anymore. So that is also affecting video as we go on here. I can't, rant enough about that. Now, the next question, I don't want to leave that really, is virtual marketing events. Again, you guys are gurus about it. I would like you to tell us about those marathon events that you guys also manage. But it's also a rising tactic for demand generation in B2B. Um, Obviously, because it allows you to reach more people. Obviously, because um, there's so much logistics to events, and so there's a lot of efficiency if done virtually. um uh Webinars are not dead. I mean, they might be slow compared to podcasts right now, but virtual events like webinars are not dead. So give us your perspective about how brands can better take advantage of you know virtual events and the content that could come from that, especially in the video space. If there are a few other examples of virtual events that you've done, how has that experience been for you? How has that experience been for the brands or the customers? Um, I just feel like people are just ignoring virtual events in a way. Maybe not entirely, but it's not, in terms of the diffusion of innovation, I don't think it's as widespread.
Yeah. No, it's funny you say that, that it does feel like, when COVID hit,
Yeah.
um, there was this moment in time where we went from all these in-person events and everybody was kind of forced into the virtual event. And what
Mhm.
happened, I think, is that people realized that those are really hard. Those
Yeah.
are they're really big lifts, and
Yeah.
they were expecting the same result or the same outcomes from their virtual events than they were the in person. But there's so many differences between those two things. And so, as an example,
Mhm.
one of our customers is a big consulting company, and they work with a lot of global nonprofit initiatives. And so, in the in-person events, the big takeaways were always, making the connections. Right? It was the networking that happened by shaking people's hands, the coffee moments outside of the different sessions. Kind of those networking outcomes were the big thing. And
Mhm.
unfortunately, when you switch to the virtual, that networking doesn't happen as immediately.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when that didn't happen, the metrics that they were measuring these virtual events by
Yeah.
weren't the same outcomes that they should have been focusing on. And so the way we've kind of shifted the conversation with our customers is
Mhm.
similar to earlier in this conversation about content creation. We say, hey, like stop thinking that let the networking happen after the event,
Yeah.
right? Yes, you can connect people and people will see each other in the comments and the chat,
Yeah.
and that will happen and the learnings will happen. But let's look at the volume of content and conversations that we can have during the virtual event. And let's
Mhm.
make sure that we're squeezing all the juice out of the lemon from that content. So rather than
Yeah.
recording one 60-second podcast a week, you have a 1 week where you're just combining all of that effort into one very focused timeline. And so you've got, we'll say, like 8 hours of content creation for 5 days in a row. And
Mhm.
as opposed to focusing on the networking, focus on the outcomes of that content creation and the
Mhm.
conversations that it will drive and the networking that will be created out of that. And so it's a shift in mindset, I think, for a lot of companies that were used to doing in person to get
Yeah.
them to start thinking about, like, no, hey, there's still a ton of value in making a virtual event. So I think that's one thing that we talk a lot about with our customers is, the event itself is great.
Mhm.
What happens after the event is what's most important, right? Making the learnings that are available and that are happening in those virtual sessions
Yeah.
available in an evergreen content format, right?
Mhm.
So I think the way we produce events then is kind of the next thing that we really focus on when we're talking about our customers, because
Yeah.
the challenge of creating the event, it feels daunting. It feels
Yeah.
expensive.
Yeah.
And there is just so many variables, right? The virtual speakers internet from all over the world. You got people joining from all over the world.
Yeah.
All of those challenges that they really didn't think about, and then they just tried to schedule some sessions. Hey, you're going to be here at 8 o'clock in the morning with so and so, and then they
Yeah.
show up 5-10 minutes later. They aren't used to the technology that you're bringing to the table. There's just all these variables. So we try to smooth that out by saying, hey, no, we have the experience producing virtual events. We need to have, a 15 to 20-minute tech check with every speaker,
Yeah.
clearly communicate the technology we're going to use,
Yeah.
how we're going to be producing this, and what value it's going to be providing them as a speaker
Yeah.
ultimately in the end, right?
Yeah.
And so I think we're seeing a lot of virtual events still. We're seeing a lot of webinars still
Yeah.
happening, and I think webinars are going to make a resurgence in a sense for lead
Mhm.
generation purposes.
Mhm.
But there
Mhm.
is even you need to be even more specific about the value you're going to provide in a webinar than you do a podcast, because it comes with a sales vibe to it,
Yeah.
right? There is this almost expectation that if I'm joining a webinar, I feel like I'm going to get sold to, you know.
Yeah, but
And I think,
there's an alternative, and I'd like you to touch on that before we have a little bit of a fun with the rapid fire. Virtual conferences. I have attended one, a few actually. I've attended one from Metadata. I've attended one from Guru Events, Jay Schwelson, the email marketing guru. I've attended a few from the podcasting world as well. What do you think about that? Like you said, a very focused event. We know it's a virtual conference, so nobody is being sold to anybody because we have guests from all over. One of those conferences would even invite competitors in there, so that takes away the selling part of it.
mhm.
Uh, that that just I guess it brings all that demand generation, knowledge sharing, and all that. You may have to pay. There's that, like an ordinary conference where you don't have to travel, you don't have to book a hotel.
Right.
What do you think about that? What do you have you is that something that you've explored, with people in the past where you do everything like a regular event, but it's just done virtually? There are guests, there's Q&A, there are roundtables, there are focus is it focus groups now? What do they call
Yeah.
them? Yeah, all those focus sessions. Tell me about that in executing that virtually. I think that remains to be the most untapped frontier.
No, I think again, I think that they're extremely beneficial. We just finished up an event called ICT for Ag. It's an international conference
Yeah.
focused on helping farmers leverage technology to be more inclusive. And it was a very powerful event for the attendees there. And what was really interesting to us,
Mhm.
and I think what should be interesting to brands out there, is that not everybody can travel. Whether that's the date you've chosen or the cost, the barrier to entry is cost.
Mhm.
Virtual participation has such
Yeah.
a low barrier to entry, and it's where people are already spending their time,
Yeah.
right? So there is a massive opportunity for brands to get smart about creating these virtual events. And I think you said something really interesting there, not being exclusive to your competitors,
Yeah.
right? Because when you take that fear and you say, no, come on in, like, we want you
Yeah.
guys to come in and we want you to share your learnings. Let's be a community. When
Yeah.
you're the leader of that, people see that, right? That sets you apart from everybody who is trying to be like, no, 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 we want we want to separate ourselves from you. It's like, no, let's
Yeah.
create a community of podcasters. We know that there's going to be competitors here, but we can have conversations and we can learn from them, and a rising tide raises all ships. And so I think that there is a really intelligent strategy about brands that are not trying to exclude their competitors from their events. And the virtual event is going to enable you to reach larger audiences. And at the end of the day, that's the most important thing any brand can do right now. Every brand on the planet, in a sense, is trying to figure out how to become a media company.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Right. And these virtual events are the networking, that is a specific networking kind of function that virtual event is going to serve for your brand. Is like, hey, we've got an audience. Let's bring them all together to have conversations. Yes, it's not going to be shaking hands and rubbing shoulders, but it's the next best thing. And I think that it can lead up to that in-person event. Right. So you start to look at all of the arrows in the quiver, right? Virtual events are lower cost than an in-person event. Yet while there is challenges to putting a virtual event on, it's easier than an in-person event, and it still has a lot of value. But you have to shift the way you're thinking about the outcomes and the metrics of a virtual event to then perceive it as being successful, right?
Yeah. No, I hopefully in B2B, I think people get that now, that demand generation or being a media company, it takes some time for brand building and things like that. So, but they always work. They always work, so
Yes.
It's a different, different episode for that, but they do always work. And as I was just chatting you right now, I'm like, yeah, I think I know two folks that might need virtual conferences right now if they want it. So another thing I just learned, it just popped up to my mind right now that Deskrig does virtual events. So that's it.
Well, thanks for the plug.
No, like I said, it's going to be a plug heavy, but I've exhausted all my questions. So we'll just go through the rapid fire and wrap up just to have some fun here. So it's going to be 3 questions. As you know the drill. Living near a furnace does not make you too immune to fire, but I think you'll be fine. So 3 questions, say the truth and nothing but the truth. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
Yeah,
I'm ready.
Okay, cool. So first question: what is your favorite product marketing or just marketing in general metric?
Yeah. I struggle with this one because I kind of go back in between two. And I think a lot of people probably answer this way. Actually, I know they do because I watch your podcast.
Yeah.
But the conversion rate, like lead to conversion rate, like how many leads versus how many conversions are you getting out of that? Like at the end of the day, that shows how well you're communicating your value to the customer, which gives you a lot of feedback on how you're communicating your brand, right?
Yeah.
But I think more importantly, customer lifetime value is probably my favorite metric because it shows your ability to not win a customer, because a lot of people can win a customer.
Yeah.
But it's just like when you're in a long-term relationship, right? Like you can get a new boyfriend or girlfriend pretty easily, but how long can you keep them around once they get to know you?
Yeah.
Right. And so I think that's probably my favorite one is lifetime value.
Yeah. Lifetime value is key. And, all this whole episode, B2B video marketing, I think it also helps in that retention as well. But I guess we are discussing this from an attraction perspective, which is fine. But it also helps with retention too, if that's kind of your thing. So that makes sense.
Well,
Okay.
I think that real quick on that part,
Please.
I'm going to say something really quick on that. I think that at the end of the day, it's that HubSpot flywheel, right? The content does serve to bring customers in, but I think also equally as importantly, it delights the customers you already have.
Yeah. It's and people don't do this, but if you're hearing this for the first time, then congratulations, because it's highly needed to retain and do things that help retain the customers. So now to the second rapid fire question. given that you do a lot of social selling enhanced by video marketing. So this will be interesting to know. How long do you use social media every day for work?
So 1 to 2 hours
Ah,
for work. I do spend
yeah.
probably more time on social media. I do kind of two different content streams, and
Mhm.
I've been focused a lot more on my personal content, my running content stuff
Yeah,
recently. I've recently got into running, and I'm
yeah,
producing a lot of more athletic kind of motivational type running content
yeah,
in
yeah,
that sense. And so I
yeah,
am creating a lot there right now, but that would 1 to 2 hours is where I like to keep it. So, I mean, I think
yeah.
that's pretty normal. I don't want to spend my entire life on social media. I do prefer the analog world, if I'm being honest, over
Yeah,
the virtual
and there's
world as
work to be
much as,
done too as well. And
yeah,
your work is such that you have to be there. It's not like how other people would do it and say, "Oh, I'll send this to you tomorrow," even though you already have it ready, and then you program Gmail to send the work in 2 days just to show that you've done a lot of work. You guys have to be there,
yeah.
So that really explains that. Okay, last rapid fire question before we wrap up. What is your favorite marketing or business quote?
This is also a hard one because I'm a big quote person. So
Ah,
I think my favorite one is the greatest accomplishment is not in never falling, but in rising after you fall.
ah,
Right. So
yeah.
it's like everybody's gonna fail, but standing up and continuing forward, I think is the takeaway there.
Can I
That's
say something on this one?
yeah,
So since there's so many plugs, I think one other plug for Garren is, they give you the benefit of the doubt. I made a ton of mistake here, not just because it's my first time in podcasting, but we just went so far, so fast. I mean, there's always a good thing to that, but if you're not prepared, that's when there are things just dropping off. So yes, if you work with Garren, they will give you the benefit of the doubt. Now that's different from they will just let you stray perpetually. So if you guys need to put that into context. So yeah, that very important one. I one of the other quote. I know you're about to say one more quote, but one of when I first met you, I saw one of your quotes on social media where you actually talked about it. Like, what is your you kind of get like a monologue on giving your best work. I don't know if you remember that quote where you said that you're giving your best work, masterpiece. You say something about masterpiece. Do you have any quotes around that, or do
yeah,
you happen to remember that?
yeah. No, I know exactly what you're talking about,
Yeah.
and I think like you'll hear a lot of people talk about progress over perfection, right? And
Yes,
it's
that
like,
was it.
don't
That
be a
was it.
perfectionist, right? Like,
Yeah.
don't focus on perfecting the work. And I think that there is merit in progress over perfection, right?
Yeah.
I do believe that. So it's like, don't not start because you're trying to make something perfect. But I also really I value the masterpiece,
Yeah.
right? Like really digging into making something your best work,
Mm,
right? So for me, perfectionism isn't about making it perfect,
yeah.
right? It's about not being lazy,
Yeah.
right? And just trying to just throw spaghetti at the wall. It's like, no,
Yeah.
like craft a masterpiece. That's what perfectionism means to me is that it's about giving your best effort all the time, and ultimately showing that you've put a lot of thought and care and love
Mm,
into this piece of art that you're going to create, that you're going to share with the world. Because at the end of the day, when you're gone,
mm,
right? If
yeah.
you just threw out a bunch of work, yes, it's going to improve over time and that masterpiece will come. But if you give your best effort in the process,
Mm,
that's perfectionism to me,
yeah.
right? It's
Yeah.
not just work for work's sake. It's like, no, let's give 110% in my progress
Mm,
over time. And then, yeah, the other one is the only place that success comes before work is in the dictionary.
yeah.
The work has to come first. And I think every founder probably has experienced this initial burst of energy and excitement, and people telling them that their
Okay.
product is great. We spent 4 years of people being like, wow, you guys have something special here, and us feeling like why are we not in Silicon Valley and rich
Yeah,
and famous right now,
yeah,
right? And
yeah,
I think that's because we hadn't put the work in yet.
yeah,
And
yeah.
there is,
I mean, sometimes I'm sorry to jump in here. You might put the work in and not end up in Silicon Valley or be Elon Musk, but I've also learned something recently about significance. So there's success and there's significance. And significance helps you to say this guy did his best, even if it's just around the space, around this community, even if it doesn't have $1 billion to his name, there's impact in the
yes,
work that has been put there. And I think that's where you guys should continue to, you have this space, you own it till there's, things max out and maybe there's AI and you guys are now AI, enabled or whatever it is like that. And that's where I found myself too as well, because like I was saying at the beginning, I put in so much work, so much investment, and people are like, is it paying right now? Are you riding a Lamborghini? I'm like, it's not really about that. I want to gain significance. If success comes enough for me to pay my bills, great. But it's more for me about significance, and it's
yes.
significance through the masterpiece, as you said. So,
Well,
uh,
I think to that same point, Dots, is like, we've watched your evolution here. Right. And so if somebody wants to question the value in the work that you've put in and like what have been the financial outcomes for you, send them to us.
yeah,
Right. As an orator, right, as a speaker,
yeah,
as an interviewer,
yeah,
as a business professional,
yeah,
we've seen you evolve. I still remember your very first monologue introduction. And I think we recorded it like 3 or 4 times because you were
yeah.
so nervous,
Even the
right? And
outro was very bad. So,
yeah, but now it's just you're so natural. And I'm sure that you're able to carry that same confidence into many other places. And that's just one tiny little thing
yeah,
that I've noticed is, the volume of work shows consistency, right?
yeah,
That you can sell to a future employer and future
yeah,
clients.
yeah.
The amount of networking opportunities that you've created out of all of the podcast interviews has increased your one-to-one networks
Yeah.
20, 30 fold. I mean, you've done
Very good.
hundreds of
Like,
episodes and
maybe 100, maybe 100, 500 fold. What are you talking about? Yeah.
yeah. And so it's like, yes, are you looking, and when somebody makes an investment in the stock market, they're not always going to see a 1 year
Yeah.
turnaround on
Nice. Time.
financial gain, right? Time
Yeah.
will show that
Yeah.
your investment now will pay off for decades to come. And I
Yeah.
think that I've seen that personally in you. And I'm super proud of your consistency and effort that you've put in over time. And, to your point a second ago as well about, making mistakes.
Significant. Yeah. Oh, making
We,
it say, okay.
right. We, as a team, one of the reasons I love being just a founder and being able to make decisions is I see people like you, the ambition in your eyes,
Yeah.
right? The size of your goals. And that's exciting. That's exciting for us to be a part of that. And
Mhm.
so, any of the times that we've had bumps along the way, it's been like, look, we're going to continue to provide grace. We would want grace because we have big goals as well, and we
Mhm.
want to be part of other people's big goals. And so, as long as it doesn't feel like somebody is being petty or taking advantage of you, but
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
always trying to work through the problem,
Yeah.
those are people that we want to be involved with. And so I'm proud to be part of your journey. I know Brian, our producer here, is proud to be part
Yeah.
of your
Charlie
journey.
Brown.
And yeah,
Yeah.
shout out Brian. Yeah, the
Yeah.
homie.
So guys, like I said, we are close to wrapping this up. It's going to be a lot of plugs. For the first time, I'm going to put a plug. Please patronize Deskrig. It can't be any better when it comes to virtual event marketing, video marketing for B2B. Together, we've gone through 300 podcast episodes. Just let that sink in. And we did that in 18 months or less. So much great stuff. The process, highly professional, but even the tech behind the services that they provide is really, really, really awesome. So if you are a podcaster or you most especially if you want to do the virtual events, virtual conferences thing, I think that's a space that they've really, really owned going forward. So now I'm going to let you give your version of that plug. Where can people find you, Garren? And learn more about this topic and learn more about what you do.
Yeah, you can go to deskrig.com, or you can also go to my LinkedIn profile and connect with me directly there. Frankly, I would prefer you to go to LinkedIn because you can connect with me. We can immediately start having a conversation and make the relationship and conversation real. So check me out on LinkedIn, it'll be easy to find me. I'm the only Garren Parkins on LinkedIn, so you won't have to filter through a bunch of names. But reach out. Don't hesitate to say hi. I'm very reachable,
Yeah.
and would love to start a conversation.
Yeah, for sure. Guys, that's it on this episode. If you want to see more of this, you just go to my website, dotslovesmarketing.com. You can also subscribe on this podcast, Marketing Leadership. Just check Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. Till next time, guys, connect the dots.
Connect the dots.
Thank you for listening to the Marketing Leadership Podcast, brought to you by Dots Loves Marketing. There will be links to any resources mentioned in today's show notes. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a 5-star review and be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode.